Hi, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice, and today I'm taking a look at Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. You might be familiar with the fact that Terraforming Mars is already a very popular board game that's been out for years. This game just came out last year, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2021, and it is basically a card game version of Terraforming Mars. In this game, everybody is working together to terraform the planet Mars. You are cooperating towards the project, but it's actually a competitive game because as you work at Terraforming Mars, you're going to track who has contributed the most to the project, and you're trying to be the greatest contributor at the end of the game. I'm going to walk you through real briefly how the game works, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my thoughts on it. In Terraforming Mars, you have a central board where you track your progress towards terraforming Mars. Everybody shares this central board, and on the right side here you have a track that tracks how much oxygen is available. You want to get that all the way to the top. And on the left side you have a track that tracks the temperature on Mars. You want to get that all the way to the top. And then you have 9 of these tiles, which when you flip one over, it indicates creating a space of ocean on Mars. So you want to flip over all 9 of these. So everybody is contributing towards terraforming Mars by raising these 2 tracks and flipping over these tiles. And over here on the outside edge of the board is a space where you put a cube of your color to track your terraforming rating. Your terraforming rating goes up every time you contribute towards one of these 3 objectives. And that's a big part of your score at the end of the game. So you want to be contributing to the progress in terraforming Mars. Each player is also going to have an individual player board where they're going to track their production rates and keep their resources. I'll talk about this a little bit more detail later on. The game revolves around playing a series of rounds, and each round there are potentially 5 phases, but you won't play every phase in each round. These tiles here represent the 5 phases, and you flip them over to indicate that those phases are going to be played in a given round. How you determine which phases get played each round is each round begins with a planning step. And during the planning step, you're going to take these phase cards, and you can see they're numbered, Roman numerals 1 through 5. And you're going to choose one of these cards in secret, play it face down in front of you. Everybody's going to reveal these cards at the same time, and that's going to determine which of these phase tiles get flipped over to indicate which phases are going to be played. So if in a particular round I might choose phase 1, that's one I want to activate, and somebody else might choose phase 3, and then somebody else might choose phase 5, and maybe the 4th player also chose phase 1. So 1, 3, and 5 would be the phases we'd play in this particular round. I'm going to walk you through real quick what each of these phases involve to give you an idea of what sort of choices you're making in a round of play. So first of all, we have phase 1, which is called development, and phase 1 is basically playing a green project card from your hand. So everyone's going to have a hand of cards. These are project cards, and they come in 3 colors, the color being indicated on the left-hand side here. So you have blue, red, and green projects. So during the development phase, you can play a green project card from your hand. You just have to pay the cost, which is in the top left corner. This is a cost in money. Money is tracked over here on your player board in this space, and using these cubes, which come in 3 denominations, being 10, 5, and 1, right? So this costs 13, so if I wanted to play that, I'd spend 13 of my credits or money, and I'd be able to play this. I'd keep it next to my player board, and it would be basically producing something for me during any future production phase. Green cards almost always produce something for you. But that's what the development phase is all about. It's about being able to play a green card. The second phase is construction, and that's about being able to play a red or blue card. The third phase is actions, and the blue cards all have actions here in the bottom left corner, or at least most of them do. So like this action, for example, lets you spend 1 credit to gain 2 plants. So those are some of the resources over here. right? So this is the credits. So you could spend one of these to gain one plant, which would go over here. All right. I'll get to what plants are good for in a moment, but that would be an action on a card. So if I already had this card in play because I had built it during phase 2 of an earlier round, then I could use the action on it during phase 3 to exchange 1 credit for 2 plants. Then I could also use any of the standard actions. So on the bottom of the player board, there's a number of standard actions listed here. And you can use these standard actions during any phase 3, and you can use them repeatedly. You can do each of them as many times as you want, as long as you have what you need to pay for them. So for example, you could pay 20 credits to build a greenery. So a greenery is represented by these little tokens here. So you just keep that next to your player board. And you also raise the oxygen level by 1. So that's good. Raising the oxygen level is good because that's working towards one of your goals. It also lets you move up on this track here, the terraforming rating, which is going to be points at the end of the game. And each greenery at the end of the game is worth a point. So that's why you'd want to do that. For 14 credits, you can just raise the temperature. So that's easy. Move that up 1, and again, that's going to move you up on this track again. For 8 plants, which is this resource that you'd store here, for 8 plants, you can build a greenery. So you'd get another one of these, you'd move that up again, move that up again, so it's more points at the end of the game. For 8 heat, which is the resource that's stored here, you can raise the temperature 1. And for 15 credits, you can flip over one of these ocean tiles. Right? So basically, you can spend credits to increase oxygen, to increase the temperature, to flip over one of these tiles. And the other 2 resources, the heat and the plants, are just an alternate way to pay for raising this track or that track, right? That's basically what the actions are about. And of course, once you get some of these blue cards out there with their actions, you can do each of those actions once per round during the action phase, and those can let you do some cool things, right? Like we gave the example of exchanging 1 credit for 2 plants, so that would help you be able to move up on this track more quickly. But they also can do other things for you. Then you have the production phase, phase 4. So during the production phase, you're going to look at your personal player board, and these sections here, this section, this section, this section, this section, these all track production rates of different things, right? So this is production rate for credits, production rate for cards, heat, and plants. And in these tracks, you can't see them very well in this video, but in these tracks there are little numbers, and where your cube sits on the track indicates the number, right? So if we put this right here, then that's indicating a 2. So during every production phase, we would get 2 cards, because that's what this area is, 4 cards. So we draw 2 cards from the deck over here. This would give you money, this would generate heat, and this would generate plants. So cards that you play, especially the green cards, are going to increase those production values. So for example, this green card will give you 3 heat production, so raise your heat production by 3. This one will raise your plant production by 2, your credit production by 1, and this one raises your titanium production by 1. So that's tracked here at the very bottom of your board. So this is your iron production and your titanium production. So that card would raise your titanium production by 1. Now you can see there isn't a place to pull resources for iron or titanium. That's because these resources work differently. Instead of having a number of that you hold on to and spend to do stuff, instead whatever the production value is acts as a discount on other cards. So for example, any card with this symbol has its cost reduced by a certain amount based on the amount of titanium that you are producing. Okay, and there's a similar thing, this symbol here, this card will have its cost reduced by the amount of iron you're producing. Okay, so that's basically how that goes. I don't think I've mentioned the red cards up to this point, except that they can be played during phase 2. Red cards essentially have a one-time effect, like this one says flip 2 ocean tiles, so I could flip up 2 of these tiles, and then it just goes away. It doesn't do anything else after that. You'll notice a lot of these cards have symbols along the left edge here. Some of these, like for example, this one indicates that this card will have a discount on it if you have titanium production. This represents that this is an event card. And you'll find that some of the other cards reference those symbols. Like you could have a card that gives you points, extra points for each of these plant symbols you happen to have on your cards, things like that. You also notice that some of these cards on the right-hand side will have a value in a little brown circle like this. That's points at the end of the game. So you're playing the game, you're playing through these rounds and phases. Oh, and I forgot to get to this research phase. So real quick, the research phase, all that the research phase does is you draw cards. So normally you would draw 2 cards, and you keep one and discard the other. So that's how that works. So you're playing through these rounds, you're going through phases. Again, you're not going to do every phase in every round because which phases actually get used are determined by the cards played during the planning step by the different players. And you're putting cards out into play that are going to give you better production, maybe give you some actions that you can do. You're going to be raising these 2 tracks, which is going to move you up on this track. You're going to be collecting some of these greenery tokens. And at the end of the game, once Mars has been successfully terraformed, you're going to add up your current score on the terraforming rating, whatever that might be, maybe 36, for example. You're going to add points from any cards you have, like this one here, and you're going to add up the number of these greenery tiles you also have, and that will be your total score. Whoever has the highest score at the end of the game is the winner. Well, hopefully that gives you an overview of how the game works. There's a few other nuances to the game. I'll mention a couple of them real briefly. One of them is that there are also what they call corporation cards. Corporation cards, each player gets 1 of them. It means that you're playing as this corporation for the game. And it gives you a different starting arrangement, lets you start with a certain amount of money, maybe lets you start with some other resources, the heat or plants, or it lets you start with production in one of the resources. And then it gives you a special ability that will carry through the rest of the game. For example, one of them lets you spend heat as if it were money, and other things like that, right? So it gives everybody a little bit of a different starting point to kind of build from. So that's interesting. Another thing is that you have the phase cards that you use to select which phases are going to be played. And so if I choose, for example, the development phase, everybody is going to have the opportunity to play a green project card during that phase. But if I was the one who selected the development phase, then I'm going to get a bonus. I'm going to be able to play that green project card, but I'm going to be able to play it at a discount. And each phase has a bonus like that for the person who selected that phase, right? So the production phase, for example, you get your normal production and then an extra 4 credits on top of it. Just little things like that. So everybody gets to do what you do in that phase, but whoever played the card for that phase gets a little bonus. So that's an interesting little nuance right there. I guess what I would like to convey about the game is that basically what you're doing, and you're doing this kind of in a loop, is you're choosing which phase card to play, and you're thinking, well, what do I need to do this round? I really need to play this green card, for example. But then you're also trying to think, well, everybody else is going to be playing a phase, and maybe it would be good for me to play a green card. But then after I've played this green card, I am going to be out of money, or very close to out of money. So it would also be nice to have production this phase, this round. Have the production phase this round. So I could play I could play the phase 1 card to get to build that green project card, or I could play the phase 4 card so that we have production this round. But I can't play both. So then I'm thinking about, what are the other people at the table doing? Is it likely that the player to my right is going to play the development phase because they want to build a green card as well? See, if they want to play a green card as well, if I can count on that, then maybe I'll go ahead and play my production phase card so we can get the production phase. But then on the other hand, maybe the player to my left, I can see that they're low on resources too. They're probably going to want to do production. So I could count on them wanting to do production. And I'll go ahead and play the phase 1 card to make sure I get to play my green card, right? So you're kind of analyzing and thinking that way and trying to figure out what other people might play and what therefore you should play and, do that. So that's interesting. Also, a big part of the game is the combos between cards, right? So you're playing those green project cards, which give you more production. It's always good to produce more resources, but you may find that there's some cool combinations there. For example, you get a number of cards out that let you produce a lot of heat, and then you can get a blue card out. Those blue cards have the actions on them, and you might have a blue card with an action that lets you exchange heat for plants, something like that. So instead of worrying about getting better plant production, I'll just put out as many of those green cards as I can that produce the heat production, and then I'll get that blue card out there that lets me exchange heat for plant, and now I'm just able to cover everything essentially with my heat, right? So you can find combinations like that. There's also cards that just give you points, and they give you points based on what you're producing or what you're able to produce and set aside, things like that, right? So you're looking for combinations in the cards and hoping that you draw, the right cards to get those combinations. That can be difficult because it's very random. It's a pretty thick deck that you're drawing from. However, when you do the research phase, you draw 2 cards and you keep 1. And if you chose to do that phase, then you get to draw 5 cards and keep 2. So if you're drawing 5 cards, even though it's a pretty big deck, you can go through the deck pretty quickly if you work at it, right? If you continually do that research phase each round, then you can see a lot of the cards that are in the deck. But then it kind of depends on knowing what is in the deck and what you're looking for, right? And then hoping that somebody else at the table isn't going for the same general strategy you are. They aren't looking for the same combos that you are, right? So there's that kind of planning and thinking and strategizing there. Overall, I think it's an interesting game, right? People are going to compare it to the original Terraforming Mars. I've never played the board game, but I've played the digital implementation of that. I think this is an interesting variation on that. I don't know that it's better or worse. It might be faster than, the Terraforming Mars board game. So if you're looking for a game that plays more quickly, then this might be preferable to the original. And a lot of people are also going to compare it to an older card game called Race for the Galaxy, because Race for the Galaxy has a lot of similar mechanisms going on. And it has that same thing where you have a certain number of phases in the round, but you don't play every phase every round. It depends on, what players make a secret selection of which phase they would like to trigger, and then you all reveal them, right? So basically the exact same mechanism. And Race for the Galaxy also has a similar thing where you're basically trying to build combos with the cards that you have in play to score a lot of points at the end of the game, right? So there's a lot of similarity there. I've played that game and I love that game, and it also has a really good digital implementation too. So basically, at the end of the day, I feel like this is a fine game. It has a nice theme. I like that the theme is, I'm going to call it science fiction because obviously traveling to Mars and terraforming the planet is not something that mankind has achieved yet. But it doesn't feel, it's not like way out there science fiction, right? It's all stuff that is theoretically achievable. There's no aliens, there's no teleporters, there's no, really way out there sci-fi concepts, right? So it's very grounded sort of sci-fi. And that's pretty cool. It's not really my thing. I prefer, to go out there a little bit farther, right? Things like Star Trek and Star Wars, that's more my jam. But I think it's cool that a game with this type of theme exists. The actual mechanisms of the game, I think, are intriguing. It's fun to figure out those combos, but I feel like there are other games that do that in a way that I find more interesting. And I think that it really hurts this game that it can be so easily compared to the game Race for the Galaxy, because I think that Race for the Galaxy has a more engaging theme, right? The theme is not real strong in either of these games, but Race for the Galaxy has that sci-fi theme, but it's a little more, fantastical, which is preferable to me. And I feel like the way that you sort of build your tableau of cards, the types of combos that you create to generate points and stuff is more interesting in Race for the Galaxy. I feel like it's fine, it works, but it doesn't really excite me. So overall, I'd say it's a decent game. It's fairly quick, fairly easy to teach, has some interesting card play with the combos that you can build. But overall, it's not a game that really excites me. It's a game I'd be willing to play with anyone who asked me to play it, but it's not a game I see myself bringing out and asking other people to play with me. So, in any case, that's Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition. Hopefully that gives you enough insight into the game that you can make your own evaluation of it. Again, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice. Thank you so much for watching, and you enjoy the rest of your day.